Hi, Chris. Thanks for coming on and talking with me today.
How are you? It's very, very good to be here.
I'm good. I'm good. So, you're an author, speaker, teacher, podcast host, etc. You wrote Indie Spiritualist and several others, including a new one you've just released called Necessary Death. You have a podcast also called Indie Spiritualist, which I'm glad is getting up and running again in 2024, which is actually how I came across your work. You have a great story, which is where you were in a dark place struggling with addiction and had been able to turn your life around into the career that you have now and the work that you've put out now. Let's start from that place because I think it's an important context for your work and for Indie Spiritualist. When you're in the depths of that place and dealing with those problems and trying to turn your life around, what led you down the path of spirituality?
Yeah, well, cool. First of all, thank you for your interest. Thanks again for having me on the show. And so what led me to
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, man? You know, m most people I've met on the path kind of they didn't come to it because life was amazing. It was like they kind of
Mm-hmm.
fell on it, got kicked onto it. For me, I it was addiction, drugs and alcohol, and lack of self-worth and self-harming and suicidal ideations. Like a lot of not awesome things in my life. I have an amazing family. I'm very blessed, but also like there was just things within me that uh, was confusing. I was, and still at times I'm a scared human being. I'm fear. So what I would do was actually a therapist. It's probably like 10 or 15 years ago. And rein me in at any point because I go all over the place. But
No
they
problem.
said to
Yeah,
me,
go ahead.
yeah, they said I was talking to them about, my alcoholism, and they said, Chris, um and they know that I have very good parents and my parents did the best they could, but there in ways parents schooling whatever it was, I didn't get all of the necessary skills, coping skills that a child perhaps needs. And so for me, drinking and drugs were a form of self-compassion. And as counterintuitive as that sounds, because it destroys the body, um, it was the only way, not the only way, but the easiest way I knew to calm, to ease, like everything that was going on in my mind, and again, the fear, the confusion, the frustration. Um, and so all of that said, I ended up, it was around 2004, I think, after my first time going through a detox and a rehab. I was living in Connecticut, and I went to, it was called Tungus Community College in Farmington. And there was a program called Drug and Alcohol Recovery Counselor, or DARC program. It was a 2 years associate's degree. Uh, I just wanted to help other people like me, because unless you've lived it, you can't fully understand it. And it doesn't mean you can't help an addict, but like, unless you've been
Yeah.
there, it's like the depths that people go and the things that we experience and the people we become, the things we do, the things that I've done that I would normally never, ever otherwise do, if I was sober. Um, it's heartbreaking. And yeah, so anyways, I enrolled in this program, and the woman who created the program was also my academic advisor. And I was maybe like, I don't know, first or second semester or whatever, and we were getting ready to look at classes coming up, and I was waiting for her in her room, and I saw a cork board, and she had like a Kali, Ganesh, Mary, I think Jesus was up there, maybe Kali. And when she came in, I kind of pointed and I said, "Hey, what's going on there? I thought you just pick one and go with it." Because I had grown up very atheist, punk rock, hardcore, like it was a crutch, religion. I didn't know the difference between religion and
Yeah.
spirituality. And she kind of smiled and was gentle with me. And she's like, no, no. Uh, so we started talking a little bit, and this woman became like she's a mentor to me for sure. Fast forward a couple of months later, I was going through a breakup, and I was really struggling with sobriety and just happiness in life. And she said, if I bring a book, would you read it? And I said, yeah, sure. I was not much of a reader. I love reading now. It's like my favorite thing to do, one of my favorite things to do. But then I was like begrudgingly accepting like, a book she was going to loan me. And it was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And this was back before he had been on Oprah, before it was like a huge bestseller. And I only say that because where I was at, I was still so like jaded and skeptical. Had she given it to me and he was on Oprah, I probably wouldn't have read it, to be honest with you. Like I was an idiot, I was an idiot. But yeah, I took the book home and I remember reading it. I was living in Middletown, Connecticut, and by the time I got through the introduction, um, it was like the rug had been pulled out from under me. Like my life was never going to be the same. Uh, just the very basic, anybody that stepped foot on the spiritual path, or even if you haven't, other people have probably had these realizations in their own ways. You are not your thoughts. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what? I'm not what I'm thinking? Huh? And there's no going back, man. There's no going back. So that's what led me there. That
So
was
from then on, you're hooked and you're going down. You just wanted to continue learning more about spirituality, and like you found that was the path for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so like I said, I was living in Middletown at the time and Connecticut. And there's a really great library that's still there. It's called Russell Library. Shout out to Russell Library in Middletown, Connecticut. It's a great library. That place became like a second home to me. I used to hop on my skateboard. It was like a 5-10 minute skateboard journey over there. And I would take out so many books and like CDs and like audio CDs. I remember Ken Wilber's Cosmic Conscious with 2Ks was there. It's a 12 CD set that he had done with Tammy Simon, the founder of Sounds True. I'm jumping ahead. I'll come back to that later. But so I went to Russ Library, and after The Power of Now, I think one of the next books there was probably Wayne Dyer was in there or Deepak Chopra, but the one that really like cut to the core was Ram Dass. I found Be Here Now. And being punk rock and hardcore, alternative skateboarder, hip hop, I was like, and again, an idiot. I was always like, oh, hippies are dumb, hippies are lame, whatever, like weed smoking, acid taking weirdos, even though I did those things too, but whatever. Um, but whoa, I read Be Here Now, and it was like, huh, this dude's punk rock. Ram Dass is like,
Yeah.
he's not technically, but no, technically, yeah, hell yeah, he is. Like Johnny Cash, for example, my all-time favorite musician. Dude is punk as fuck. Like Johnny Cash is the
Yeah.
man, like. But yeah, Ram
Yeah.
Dass, wow, he those words just So the power of now was like it opened my eyes. Be Here Now opened my heart. And yeah, I mean there's so many directions I can go in this. Like so yeah, you tell me. 'Cause like in my room right now, like you can't really see. I'll show you. Like there's this really beautiful Ram Dass print right there. Um Alex
Nice.
Gray did that. He gifted that to me when I was at Cosm doing a podcast with him and Allison a few years ago.
Nice.
That's very
That guy's
special.
amazing.
Yeah, Alex and Allison are two of the sweetest humans I've ever been blessed to meet and teach with and spend time with. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they're amazing. So, anyways, yeah, whatever. I'm happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
So when you're first exploring different books and stuff,
Yeah,
there's so much out there about spirituality where you just kind of like whatever was available, like whatever is popular, just like things that you're aware of, just like picking and choosing until eventually you found the one that kind of hit, and that was Be Here Now.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at the spiritual buffet table for sure.
Yeah,
And so there's different schools of thought on this, and I'm not saying any one is right or wrong. That's one thing I will never say, this is right, that's wrong, no way. Like, because I don't know,
yeah,
I can tell you what's worked for me
right.
and what's to me might not help you. I hope it does, or, I'll give you some other pointers maybe. But yeah, I was so, it was like a whole new world opened up to me. And I'm like, wow, I want to read all of this. So I'm reading like Rumi, the Sufi mystic. I'm reading Meister Eckhart, a Christian mystic, Thomas Merton. I'm starting to then venture also towards, like I mentioned, Ken Wilber. I took out that Cosmic Conscious 12 CD set, and I remember listening to it. I understood maybe 1% of it, if I'm lucky. Like, are you familiar with Ken Wilber's work at all?
No, but I know what you mean,
Yeah,
and I know his work is very expansive and
it
abstract.
is.
Yeah,
He's amazing. Ken is my other teacher. Ram Dass and Ken are, talk just what a blessed life I have, and the trippy thing about that for me is shortly after Be Here Now, I took out that Cosmic Consciousness, and I then read, um, I think it's A Brief History of Everything by Ken Wilber, and then One Taste, Grace and Grit, which was just turned into a really brilliant movie a year or two
oh cool.
ago. Yeah, Mina Cerveri and Stuart Davis are in it. Uh, what's his name? Sebastian Siegel, a really nice guy, really brilliant man, crafted a fine film about Grace and Grit. I
Cool.
cried. I remember I called Ken after I was in tears. I'm like, I could barely speak. I'm like, it was really well done. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I, I wanted, I wanted to know more. I've even since I was a kid, like I know this isn't my first go around, or I'm pretty sure this isn't my first time in this like body meat suit, whatever you want to call it. I've always been kind of diverse. I grew up playing soccer and hockey, but also skateboarding in the 80s, which it wasn't cool to skateboard, like we put up skateboarding is not a crime stickers because you get
Yeah,
harassed. I know skaters still get harassed, but there were no X Games. It wasn't in the Olympics. It was like skateboarders are degenerate misfits. And but I loved skateboarding. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the music. Like I don't
yeah,
know. I've always loved life. I've always been like, wow, there's so much cool shit here. Um and
yeah,
that lent itself when I found my way to spirituality. It's like, wow, there's so much cool shit here too. Like, dope. Let me find out. And then I found like Noah Levine's Dharma Punk's book and Brad Warner. In Buddhism, he wrote Hardcore Zen and a number of other fantastic books. Both of those guys' books meant a lot to me and still do, and I've gotten to talk to them and learn from them too, and they paved the way for me, a couple of punk rock hardcore dudes, musicians or tattooed skateboarders, counterculture weirdos, like right on, my people.
yeah,
And so they were
yeah,
carrying the torch before me, So I'm not doing anything new under the sun. I'm just trying to show up and help, Like that's all.
yeah. So that takes us to, I mean, the title of the book, your first book being Indie Spiritualist, and the same
Mhm.
with the podcast. This is a concept that I like a lot. I'm I'm similar to you in the way that I like to kind of taste various things, and I've went through phases myself of like going very broad, even just like reading Houston Smith's World Religions book, which is just
Love them. Yeah.
like broad. It's like an introduction to all of them. Well,
Yeah.
many of the main ones. And
Right.
I've always liked this idea of like patching together different ideas from different traditions because I think it's cool that today we have access to all of these. Like before, and that's so new. Where before it's like maybe you grew up in, you grew up in the U.S. You probably don't have access to many of the other traditions, or if you grow up in, you know, Japan, you might not have access to various kinds of religions that are across the world. But now with, Amazon libraries, internet, all that kind of stuff, we have the ability to do that now. And it's something
Yeah.
that is very compelling to me. So when you say indie spiritualist, just for those who are unfamiliar, could you explain what you mean by that term?
Yeah, honestly, it was a play on words. It was not, I didn't mean for it to be anything. And I still to this day kind of look at it and I don't want to say regret it. It's almost, I wasn't trying to start a thing, and it never really became a thing. And that's cool. What it was for me was like, I loved independent culture, like, and I was at the time, and still love spirituality. So, like indie rock, indie independent, and then spirituality, indie spiritualist. I was driving to work. I was living in Vernon, Connecticut with my first fiance at the time, and I was working with kiddos in Middletown through the YMCA, doing like before and after school work, and also working with the Department of Children and Family Services, mentoring some like 5 to 18-year-old males that have been through some rough things and um, amazing experiences, some tough experiences, but really what a blessing, to share those experiences with human beings. And yeah, so I'm driving down one day on Route 84 to Route 9. If anybody's listening from Connecticut, they know that drive. Um, it was about 45 minutes, and just yeah, the it popped in my head, indie spiritualist. Okay, cool. Like, go with it. And the first book actually I we sold it. My literary agent sold it. It was titled "Watch It Burn," which is I stole, not stole. I borrowed uh, as an homage to a really great Boston, or maybe not Boston, but Massachusetts hardcore band called Cast Iron Hike. Love this band, and they had an album or a song or both called "Watch It Burn." I just really liked that. And to me, like, watch it burn, like, just watch everything you thought you knew, like, burn away. Like, when I was on my couch reading The Power of Now in Middletown, like, holy shit, it's not what I thought it
Yeah,
was. And even
yeah,
today, like, even over the last month especially, holy shit, it's not what I thought it was, and who is it who I thought it was? If you're listening, you can't see I'm doing quotations like Chris Grosso, like, and we can talk more about that. But yeah, yeah,
yeah. Those moments are so weird when it's so interesting when you're like you're kind of like sitting there by yourself and maybe you read something very thought provoking and your head's just kind of like just kind of explodes and you don't really know. You're like, oh man, like this is definitely going to change like the way
yeah,
that I'm thinking moving forward, the way that I'm acting. It's like it's a little scary in some ways because you know that like you've had a paradigm shift in a way that's like you're not going to be able like to be the same person anymore, and it feels good because it's
right,
exciting because it's like
right.
you feel like it's an improvement, but it's definitely an interesting change in your life. Did you have
Totally.
much of that where you're like, yeah, where you were like moments where you're just like, this is like, I'm not going to be the same person after reading like something like The Power of Now and first being introduced to these ideas or even be here now. Like,
Yeah,
what were those moments like for you when you realized that like it had just completely changed the way that you thought?
yeah. Um, I've had countless moments like that. And now they seem to be on a daily basis, actually, to be honest. And I mean that, like today, for example, um, I right now I'm working outside of working on a new book, still very early stages. I work at a very unique um it's called the Patch Program, and it's it was, if I believe, and I apologize to this facility, I won't name it, but if I'm incorrect, I don't know if it was originally a nursing home or not, or like a memory care place, but the unit I am on, it was a memory care unit for residents that have Alzheimer's and dementia. And I work under a pretty incredible person that's my supervisor. And they had this vision of also incorporating other mental health diagnoses like schizophrenia and bipolar, and you know, respecting HIPAA laws. I can't speak about specific
Right.
cases or names or anything, but you name it, from addiction to self-harm. There's a lot of really tragic, heartbreaking stories on that unit. And we have a resident that unfortunately there's some hospice residents there. There's been, I think, 4 residents that have passed away in the just 3 months I've been there. And there's one who, she can be very difficult and unpleasant at times. She has scratched me. She has spit on me. She has called me pretty much every name in the book, told me I'm going to burn in hell and this and that. But she is also an absolutely beautiful soul, a beautiful human being. Um, Remove the word soul if you're Buddhist, just a beautiful being, whatever you care to call it. And this wonderful woman, um, she unfortunately fell and I guess has a fracture, like 5 fractures in her hip, and
Yeah.
she's already hospice care. And that happened yesterday, and I came in today, and hospice is now with her 24/7 because they had to increase the morphine that she's taking. And unfortunately, with her state, that the state that she's in physically, it doesn't seem like she's going to make it through the end of the week. And you know, it's hard to be with that be there with that person. Like we change residents. I work with all the residents on the unit, and I love them, and I love all the people I work with. I work with some of the most creative, smart, heartfelt, just lovely human beings. Like I'm getting a little emotional right now just thinking about them, because I was talking to my coworker. I won't name her name either, but she's a really good person. And we kind of laugh at the madness that we see sometimes, and we joke, like, unless you worked on this unit or you saw what we saw, like, you can explain it to people, but you'll never understand it, because unless you're there, you don't get it. Um, but anyways, to
Yeah.
go back to this woman, I was holding her hand this morning, and one of the lead nurse in that hallway for her, she she had been crying, and she asked me if I could go get hot chocolate for this individual. And and she's like, I just don't want people to see me like this right now. She'd had a rough morning, and she'd been crying, and I got her some eye drops. And she, because we really care there, we really care
Yeah.
about our residents. And so anyways, I went in and I got her hot chocolate, and I brought it in, and I was talking with the resident, and I was holding her hand. Um, and she's sad, and she was crying a little bit, and she's very Catholic, and she was saying how she doesn't really love herself. And I started to tear up because I said to this resident, um, I've spent a lot of my life not loving myself too, and I've made mistakes, and I've done things that aren't awesome. But I said, in this moment, I know I'm doing the best that I can do. And I said, over the time I've been getting to know you, I see you, and I see your heart, and I see that you're a good person. And and this individual agreed, and they said, yeah, I don't want war. I don't want people to be nasty people. I don't want them to be mean and fight and kill. And I said, I know, me neither. And I said, can you do me a favor? And she said, what? And I said, can you can you I'm not going to say her name, but I said, can you forgive yourself and say, I love you, insert name here, and try to mean it. And she said it out loud, and I could tell she did mean it. And she started to cry. And that changed me, that moment. Going back to your question. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
life-changing moment. I will never be a different person because of that moment. Um, I miss my family a lot right now. The holidays just happened. I haven't seen them in a couple of
Mhm.
years. They're in Connecticut. still there. My aunt's in Maine, I have family in Maine. Um, really, I'm very blessed to have really good human beings in my life. But so it's been emotional. It's been tough lately. But I said to this person, I said, I miss my mom, but I love you like a mom. You're a good woman. Thank you. And she said, I can be your mom while your mom's not here. And I was like, thank you. You know, cool.
Mm.
And yeah. Um,
How long have you been working in this unit?
it's been 3 months. On the 13th, it'll be 3 months I've been there. Yeah. So
In being a unit in a unit like that, that's abnormal and very different than many environments that you've likely been in, that I've certainly been in. What are some of the ways that's kind of changed the way that you think?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that one more time? I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want to pause for a little bit?
Yeah, no, no, it's okay. I was gathering myself. I'm sorry. I'm okay. Thank you
Okay.
for that. That's
Yeah,
okay.
no
Yeah,
problem.
just repeat that. I'm good to go. This is human. I don't let's be real about
Yeah.
it. Like thank
Yeah.
you. You're very good at holding space. Kudos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Um, yeah, if at any point you want to pause, just let me know. We can pause
Yeah.
or edit anything.
No,
That's
I
cool.
appreciate it. Just aside from her name, no, I'm not embarrassed. Like this is like I try to be who I am everywhere I go. Like at work,
Yeah.
in a podcast, to the stranger
Yeah.
on the street. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. It takes a lot to be willing to show that level of vulnerability, and it takes a lot of strength. So I appreciate this.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jake. Thank you.
Uh, so being in a unit like this one, that's very outside of regular life and typical environments that I at least I've grown up in, people I've grown up around. I have been around some people, I have family members who struggled with mental illness. Uh, I'm not sure who all you've been around, but throughout your life, but I imagine that this unit is much different for the most part. How has your time there so far changed your perspective and the way that you think? What are some things that you've taken away from working there?
Mm, great question. Thank you for asking. Um, a few things come to mind. One is integrity. Do the right thing when no one's looking. You know, um, we're often short-staffed, and everyone there, most people there, they're doing the best they can. And I don't think we're unique in that sense. I think anywhere in nursing, this is my first experience. I've worked in the mental health field in varying degrees for over 10 years, but never in this kind of a facility or unit. And so I can't really speak to that outside of this being my only experience. But from what I've gathered from the beautiful, amazing people I work with, it's not, or it is actually, it's similar where you go and just nursing in general. But uh, you're often overworked, stressed out, and
Yeah.
tired, and you have to not have to, but to do your job to the best of your ability, you need to check yourself when you walk through that door and leave what's going on in your life outside of that the best that you can. Because that this job, whether it's a mental health worker or a CNA or an RN or LVN or an SDR, a sitter, whether you're in activities or you're doing the physical therapy things, the receptionist, there, who's also a CNA, who's an amazing person that I rent this room from. Like, you know, we show up there and we give our hearts to these human beings, and so yeah, integrity matters, because and what I mean by that is like just picking something up on a residence floor if somebody else didn't, like, they can get the rooms can sometimes be a little messy. Or just going that extra mile, like holding their hand or making sure if a resident's waiting to eat, make sure you find the proper person to like that so they get fed. Or if there's a new CNA or someone that's filling in, like take a moment and tell them about the resident a little bit, just so they know who they're working with. And if they need some guidance, like be there, like have each other's backs and put your hand on your coworker's shoulder sometimes. Look them in the eyes, give them a hug, like do that with the residents you work with too, like of course appropriately. But yeah, like these things are shifting me every day. Like, it yeah, life's delicate, that goes without saying, but to like sit there and literally be watching people's lives, what an honor it is to be present with these individuals that are transitioning. A lot of them don't have family members. You know,
Yeah.
the one I was mentioning who probably won't make it through this week, her family kind of like wrote her off. And
Yeah.
so it's tough, but I try to be their family as much as I can, like, and I know, and not just me, the
Hmm.
other people there that I work with, we're all family there in our own weird, unique, quirky ways. Like, God, I'm so blessed. Like it's tough, man. It is tough. It's like it's not a job I think a lot of people can do. Um, Not because people aren't good enough to do it, but it takes a certain kind of human to be able to do it. So what a gift that I get to not only work with such beautiful humans, um, but beautiful coworkers that like,
Yeah.
yeah. And we all have our own life stuff, and you get to know people
Right.
there, and like, it's
Yeah.
hard not to be vulnerable with each other because like I see everything there. Like human beings, like it's gross at times, like I see poop, I see all the body parts, I see things, like I smell things. It's being human is, like going back to Buddhism, for example, like there's, I think, the 32 part meditation. I wrote about that maybe in Indie Spiritualist, where you meditate on like bile and nails and hair and all the excretions and gross stuff that is human. But there's the beautiful stuff too. And it's just like, wow, talk about confronting what it means to be human. But also at the same time, that which is beyond human, the soul, whether it is Buddha mind or Brahman or whatever you care to call it. It's all in that unit. And I've met family members
Yeah.
too that like I try to take time to get to know their families. And some of them I've talked to know who Thich Nhat Hanh is. They know who Ram Dass is. Like they've read these people's like teachings and work. And we have another resident. He's from Vietnam. I think it was my first day working. I thought I was going to get fired. One, because first of all, I'm heavily tattooed, head to toe, and I'm working with elderly people. And luckily, California is a lot cooler than Connecticut is about that. But there's this gentleman. He he has trouble communicating, but he writes what he wants to talk about and or what he needs to convey. And he thought I was like FBI, and I was like a Vietnamese like FBI agent, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired. Um, but he has become such a dear person to me on that unit. I got to speak to his daughter last week or 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about Thich Nhat Hanh. She saw a mala that I was wearing, and we were talking about Zen Buddhism and Thai and Plum Village and his monastery, Blue Cliffs, and all these wonderful things he's done. And so when I see this gentleman, I bow to him. I bow deeply and I look at him, and I bow. And he bows back, and even though like namaste, really, yeah, it's cool to say that or whatever, but like really like that which is in me that is the same which is in you, Jake, and this individual and all beings, when we are not in that place of hey, it's Chris talking to Jake. No, it's this incarnation, the soul that is like, or whatever, the life force, whatever you call it, prana, energy that is giving, this body its force, and your body. When we lay our names and all the stories aside, like we're seeing each other, like Ram Dass in his book, polishing the mirror. We're polishing the mirror for one another. So it's such a gift, man. I didn't think I would make it at this job. My second day there, one of my favorite residents, because you never play favorites ever, but you just grow close to some residents more than others. So it's inevitable. Um, and one of my absolute favorites, I remember I was so overwhelmed. I was with this individual. They have dementia and some other things, and um, screaming and nonsensical talking, very loud, jarring um, speech in a wheelchair. And I remember, like, what did I sign up for? Like, I can't do this. And I felt very incapable. I felt like I'm not ready. Like, I'm doing a disservice to this person. I don't know what I'm doing. So I've taken time outside of there to like learn about dementia and Alzheimer's. I read about it. I learn, I
Yeah.
watch YouTube videos. My supervisor loaned me a book that I'm reading right now. I forgot the name, but it was actually, and I'm grateful I didn't realize who it was at first. Because again, I might have written it off because I catch myself. I still have sometimes these judgy like things that I don't like
Right.
about me, but I'm quicker to catch myself. But it was Ronald Reagan's daughter. I forgot her name and I forgot the name of the book, but I'm reading it right now because Ronald Reagan had dementia and or Alzheimer's, and there's a difference. And I don't want to speak too much about it because I'm still learning about it, and there's a lot to know about it. So I don't want to do it a disservice, but. Um, I'm so grateful that I get to learn about that stuff now, and really just see human beings like in the most raw, vulnerable space and laugh with them and hold their hand and fight back tears at times and hold in my frustration. There's a big guy in the unit who's a buddy, like not a buddy, like you can't how do I word this? Like you have to have a professional relationship with them, but you also want to be friendly with them.
Yeah.
On Friday, this individual said he was gonna knock my fucking head off, and I had to like stand my ground and calmly like, let him know like, hey, man, I need you to take a breath with me. Like, it's okay. And my supervisor came over and luckily they stepped in and helped. But again, go back to Ramdas. It's like Ramdas says, we're all just walking each other home. Like really at the end of the day, we're all just walking each other home. So I don't mean to go on and on about that facility or those individuals, but that's
No,
obviously
feel
it's the
free.
core of like my life right now. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's happening with me.
What or to what extent has you mentioned seeing more dimensions of humanity and what we would typically call bad or gross or ugly within this unit. You see more of that than we usually see just in daily life. Is there some level of, I guess, non-dual awareness that has been made more salient to you in there, where
Yeah,
you're not casting the same level of judgment that we usually do, and you're kind of embracing both sides of the coin?
absolutely. Another great question. You're a very good podcaster. I'm so glad to be on your show.
Thank you.
Kudos,
Thank
kudos.
you. I really
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, no, respect. Yeah. Something I learned in my 3 months just by trial and error or the universe or through meditating and just being open is one of the most, for me at least, effective techniques of working with the residents, regardless of what their diagnosis is looking them in the eyes and seeing them. And like I was saying a few minutes ago, not Chris looking at Jake, but seeing, like actually looking at the individual. And I will say, with some of the residents, whether they're in one of their dementia fits or schizophrenic episodes, I will just calmly, like, hey, I will use their name and I will look them in the eyes. The resident I mentioned earlier with dementia, that was screaming and could be jarring. Their head tilts to the side sometimes. So I'll lean over and I'll tilt my head so that our eyes line up. And I will look them in the eyes and I will gently hold their hand so they know there's a human connection there. And I'll use their name. And in that moment, it's not me and that person. It's just, yes, it's this witnessing awareness. Ram Dass calls it loving awareness. Ken Wilber calls it I amness or suchness or isness, that which is always ever present. Ken did a great thing or wrote something really beautiful. It's in a couple of his books, but it asks a question, and I'll do a terrible job of summarizing it, but it's like, what was your original face? Like before, like think about what was going on 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 5 millennia ago, and he brings it back to essentially there was this non-judging isness, suchness, this ever-present awareness that simply is. So capital I S dash NESS isness. Um, and and I don't intentionally try to do that. I just that's something that started flowing through me on this unit. So um what a gift to my spiritual journey. And I share that with my coworkers. I'm like, hey, I don't talk about spirituality much with them because I want to respect them and their beliefs. And to me, hey, I don't care what you believe in as long as you've got a good heart. Awesome. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
But like I'll tell them, hey, this helped me today. Or I ask them, hey, what's working with you? Like what's how has it been going with this individual? We do daily notes and we keep track of like what's working, what's not working. And what I can say is in these 3 months on that unit, what went from a very disorganized, chaotic, very tough unit has become and is becoming a much more fluid, calm, beautiful place to be. Now, that said, it is still chaotic, at times, and it's loud,
Sure.
and it sometimes sounds like the soundtrack to a horror movie. It really does. Like the things you hear, the
Yeah.
screams, the cries, the
Yeah.
outbursts, the throwing of things, the spitting, the scratching. People get hurt on that unit. Workers get hurt. Um, people that work in mental health, whether it is this kind of work or with autism too. I have a beautiful friend in Encinitas who's also from Connecticut that I've reconnected with out here. I'm very blessed to have reconnected with him. He spent a lot of time working with autistic people and created a beautiful company working with autistic children. And, he's told me stories. I believe he's been punched in the face. And like it's just, like I said earlier, it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do this. And the other thing that stinks is the pay is not really the
Right.
best,
Right.
and so, hey, Gavin Newsom or whatever world, like start paying your nurses and mental health
Yeah.
workers more
Yeah.
freaking money. Because right now, I could leave this job and go flip burgers, and there's nothing against flipping burgers. People need to do that too. So thank you to people that are doing that. You're also doing a service. Thank you. No better, no worse. We're just doing different things in the world. Um, but you can make more money doing that than you can like doing some of the stuff I and my fellow workers do. Uh
Yeah.
and sure, yeah, we have choices. We can get more schooling and education, but at the end of the day, like it's a very underpaid, underappreciated job. But that said, not by the people you work with. Because we know, because we're in there
Yeah.
together. We're in the trenches. We're like I said, we're really like family, dude. Like we really like we ask each other how we're doing. You get to know them. You get to know about their families. Like, I don't have a car right now. I take public transportation, and two of my coworkers on, I think it was New Year's Day. I worked a 12-hour shift. I was going on no sleep, was it? Or maybe it was Christmas Day. I don't remember. One of the two. I was exhausted, and I could have caught the bus, but I asked for a ride. It's something I never would have done, it, and years or even months past. It's still hard for me to ask for help, but I did, And they're like, yeah, of course I'll give you a ride. A couple of my very dear coworkers gave me a ride home, and they're happy to do it, and we laugh and we joke and we smile and we get frustrated together, and sometimes we bicker, because it's like a family. But so I don't even remember what the question is. I'm sorry, but
It's okay, me neither. It's all good.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad to let you just kind of, talk about what, because obviously like the questions and stuff that I have are just based on some of the research that I've done on you, but you have much more uh, presently relevant things going on in your life. So it's frankly, I think it's much more interesting to hear about this than even some of the things I was planning on asking in the beginning.
sure.
For yourself, and I'm not sure to what extent you can speak to this for some of your coworkers, but you touch on the difficulty of the job and how poor the pay is. What made you want to do that job, and do you know what drove some of them to be in there as well?
Yeah, sure. Great question. I'll just speak to me, because
Sure.
I don't know with everyone else, and I want to say in all fairness, um, you know, the company is they are aware of that, and they look at that pay, and I have a conversation coming up this week with them about pay and looking at my resume and work I've done, and so I appreciate them for doing that. They do take the time. It is a business at the end of the day. I understand that. Like they have to make money. Insurance companies bill and we need to document and these things come into factor. So, what I can say is like, I appreciate, um, the powers that be that are above me, doing that. So thank you, aside from that, I'll be honest. I had made my living for about 10 years. I was self-employed through my books, through public speaking, traveling, and also through I was doing a lot of independent contracting in Connecticut at a really wonderful facility working with teenagers for about like 7 years, give or take, teaching meditation. They would use my books as part of their kind of loosely as part of a curriculum in a way. And I would bring books in sometimes at Christmas and give them to residents. And um, I would bring my guitar and amp in and do music meditations with them. And it was
Cool.
again, beautiful, but very hard work. 13 to, I think 13 to 19-year-olds. There for everything under the sun from suicide attempts to addiction, eating disorders, just mental health in general. But anyways, so COVID hit, public speaking stopped. I was still working with the teens. I had the option of doing that work via Zoom, but it's not the same, so I got my
Right.
COVID shots and I don't care to talk about that. Like I respect your body, your choice, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. That's a whole another conversation. But I did it so I could continue working with them. I did it because my mom has pre-existing conditions and I just wanted to be able to keep helping people, like um but so anyways, I ended up that was a lot, doing that and my relationship at the time I was engaged again to a different woman, a really beautiful, great human being that I don't talk to anymore, but plenty of regrets, like things I could have done different, but I wish that person well, and always only wish them well. We'll never speak ill of them, but they started working from home, and so we were in each other's space a lot more, and it just didn't work out, and I relapsed, and that individual experienced some not amazing things, like, and they weren't perfect either, and they own that, but I can only imagine what they went through, seeing the person they loved, what I went through, and how awful that was for them, but so that's what led me out here. Just being cognizant of time, I checked myself into a psychiatric unit in Connecticut because I was during my relapse. My my ex-fiance moved out and I stayed in the apartment. It was very haunted being there. Like I lived with this individual there for a few years and now they're gone. And I remember when they were moving out, like I chose alcohol over that person. Really good person. But that's the power of addiction, that this illness, this disease is it will, it, you become a slave to it. I became a slave to it. I remember when that person was moving out, a friend of theirs came and was helping them move out of the apartment. I was sitting in the bedroom alone, drinking a handle of vodka, watching through the curtain as they were leaving. And I wanted desperately to go to say, don't go, or hug them, or tell them I'm sorry. But the most skillful thing I could do in that moment, as unskillful as I was being, was to just shut the fuck up, stay in the room and drink. And they texted me after they left and said, I wanted to come say goodbye, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I understood why they couldn't. And I said, I get it. I know. So anyways, yeah, I started, I was just existing at that point. I was going to Whole Foods and I was stealing alcohol from Whole Foods. And I'm sorry to my parents. I don't know if they know this or not. My mom and dad sometimes listen to my podcasts. And I'm sorry to Whole Foods too. You guys got the money, but still, it wasn't right. I was broke, and I would drive over in the morning, and I had an EBT card or a debit card with the little money I had, and I would put a few things in my reusable bag, and I would put like some 6 packs of like beer under there, under the food, and I wouldn't ring it out, because I couldn't afford it. And I'm making amends for that in various ways. I'm donating money when I can. I've donated money or my time, or just I'm doing things to make up for that. Like making amends is the right thing to do. I owe a lot of people a lot of things, and accountability is big to me. But again, I know this is a long answer to your question, but
That's
things
okay.
got really bad. And while I was in that psych unit, I ended up there twice actually. Uh, over a 3 month period, and I was gifted a scholarship to a really great program called Retreat in Pennsylvania. But I wasn't ready, or I wasn't taking it seriously enough. And I even told my counselor there, like, this isn't clicking like it usually would. I tried, but I just knew something was wrong. And by the time I got back to my apartment, it was 5, 10 minutes. I went to the liquor store and I was drunk the same day I got back. And a day or a week, I don't remember, I was back on that psych unit. And they gave me oral ketamine treatment because I was no, I was my body wasn't responding to any medication, and that's too is a whole nother podcast. But they did 3 rounds of oral ketamine treatment over 10 days, and that saved my life. Saved my life. And I know that's a very delicate topic, psychedelics, psilocybin, things like that. All I can say to that is please do your research if that's something you're thinking about doing. There's wonderful studies out of St. John's Hopkins, out of Columbia.
Yep.
A friend of mine is, I believe, the co-creator of the psychedelic research department at San Diego University,
Nice.
UCSD. She's like 15, 16 years sober. And she says, dude, first 5 years I was using psilocybin mushrooms. Like, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be sober today. So I have a deep reverence for plant medicines and for ketamine when used appropriately, for certain people.
Right.
But please do your research, talk to people, don't just go do it, because that's also led me back to drinking because I didn't do it skillfully after the fact when I got to California. I was trying to, and who knows, I maybe one day that's still in my cards, like appropriately. I don't know, but right now, like I'm just doing the best I can with what I've got. But yeah, so I was in the
Yeah.
psych unit, and a friend of mine, a really great human being in Los Angeles, was in a sober living, and he said, "Hey, man, there's a program called Music Cares through the Grammys. Um, you're eligible. You're a musician." So I filled out the H-page application. They accepted me. I paid for my plane ticket, flew out to LA, relapsed, ended up in San Diego, relapsed a few times. Uh, long story long, trying to make it short. Was in
No
sober
problem.
living, and was like, yeah, I need to start working again. I gotta, pay some bills. I want to work with human beings. And I found this job. That's what led me there. Because in the qualification for my position, there's many different positions there. It says the qualification is they ask, and it's like one of them is first thing, you care. Requirements, you care. Something like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
I care. let me see what this is all about. And I interviewed with this really wonderful woman who's not with the company anymore via Zoom. And I was nervous, because I had tattoos on my head and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, elderly people. And even though my friend in Encinitas was like, no, California's different, dude. I was still nervous. But Ramdas came up and she's like, oh, I know who he is, my husband especially. And I think that might have helped. I believe Ramdas and Maharaji definitely look over me and guide me still to this day. They're in my heart. And but that's what led me to that unit. And I think that story is probably not super unique, different for other residents or employees there. But at the end of the day, I can't say that that's the case for everyone that works there, but the majority of the people there, uh, it's their heart. It's that like they want to help people. And there is good pay there too. Like if you go and you become like an RN or an LVN or all this stuff. Like there's opportunities to make decent money for sure. So I'm not saying like everything is underpaid. It's just some of the beginning stuff is tough. But I want to be fair. Like there's opportunities, there's schooling, there's shorter programs to get your CNA or registered behavioral technicians. There's programs that are affordable. It's just tricky to find the time on top of working. A lot of us are working 50, 60-hour days, 12, 16-hour shifts, like 6 days, 7 days a week. I worked 9 days straight once. Some of those were 12-hour shifts, and some employees were like, wow, that's great. But yeah, I've worked 10, 12 days straight. It's like, Jesus, like, whoa. This month, I've worked pretty much 6-day weeks, like 55 hours. And that's not a lot for some people, but when the work you're doing is this demanding, it's a lot.
Yeah.
No, so,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. In dealing with some of these times that you've had recently and being in some of the dark places that you have been, you mentioned Ram Dass and Maharaji and the influence that they've had over you. What are some of the, I guess, perspectives or maybe tools or things, practices, things that you've kept in mind that have kind of helped you in times when you've kind of hit lows?
Sure. Always, the first one, the quintessential be here now. It all starts there. Come back to this present moment. You know, take a breath, ground yourself. What a gift this job is for to actually practice what I don't want to say preach, but that saying practice what you preach or like there's a very famous musician's son that works there and or not works there, excuse me, is a resident there. And they have a picture with Mick Jagger on their wall. It's not Mick Jagger's son. It's another famous person's son who's passed away. But um, they're in the dining hall area often playing a keyboard. And I was talking to this individual because I'm a musician too. And I said, I actually just ordered some guitar strings today because I like to bring music with me and try to play music for people. It's very, I think, connecting and calming. And my friend in Encinitas has gifted me a ukulele that I've brought, and I play with the residents sometimes. But so I told this individual, like, hey, we were talking about what we play, and he's like, yeah, I play guitar. And I said, hey, I'm gonna bring my guitar. I'm getting some strings. And he goes, hey, man, don't talk about it, be about it. And I was like, yo, I've said that before. Okay, don't talk about it, be about it. Don't talk about it, be about it. So that's another teaching. Don't talk about it, be about it. Show up, ground, take a breath, and actions always speak louder than words. And residents there that don't have the mental capacity to connect and have these very coherent conversations, where they can connect with you is in your heart, that heart level. There's a lot of science about how our heart energies, there are energetic fields, that our heart energy does go out. I encourage people look at some of that science. Like I think Heart
Yeah.
Math is a website. Greg Braden talks a lot about that. A great guy. Also, he does a great series on Gaia. Side note called Missing Links. I just got into that. I recommend it if
Oh,
anybody's
cool.
interested in cool things. Yeah. Bruce Lipton talks about that and epigenetics and art, and I don't know if he goes into the heart necessarily, but there's a lot of cool science around that. So yeah, like look, looking people in the eyes, like using your energetic field, your body, your calmness to connect with another human being and being present. Like what a wonderful opportunity for me to work on that while I'm there with these beautiful humans, and not just them, with my coworkers too, because we get stressed out. We can snap at each other, or sometimes be a little snippy or passive aggressive. Because we're human
Yeah.
beings, dude. We're stressed out and we're working all these hours and we're tired, and
Yeah.
we have to go to the bathroom to cry sometimes. Because, hey, man, it's a tough job. But yeah, those are some of the great teachings for me that I use while I'm there, and I'm reminded of. And Thich Nhat Hanh, another great teacher, Zen, Buddhist monk. I'm rereading right now, Living Buddha, Living Christ. I have it in storage in Connecticut, but I just ordered it. And he talks about, he has various forms of this, but I really like this one where he's talking about breathing in. The short version, and again, not verbatim, but like breathing in, I am calm. Um, Breathing out, I am present. And what is it? Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I smile, and gently smile. He talks about how, you look at a lot of pictures of Buddha, of Sakyamuni, of Siddhartha, Siddhartha, and he has a little slight smile on his face. So breathing in, calm, the calming sensation. Breathing out, I smile, and actually smile a little. Breathing in, I am present, present moment. Breathing out, this is a wonderful moment, because it is a wonderful moment. In this moment, right now, everything's okay. It's wonderful. So sometimes I'll just, breathing in the word calm, breathing out, smile, and smile a little. Breathing in, present, breathing out, wonderful. And I don't say it, I just think it. Or while I'm walking, like, because a lot of it, you're walking quickly. I pay attention to my feet on the floor. Thich Nhat Hanh said, walk as
Yep.
if your feet are kissing the earth. I use public transportation because I don't have a vehicle right now, and I have to hustle sometimes. I was with my friend yesterday, and we were hustling. Was it yesterday? I don't. Sorry, it's a weeks, just months of blur already. But we're hustling from bus to train to bus, and it's like. But I was telling them, like, just be mindful of your feet, because right now we have to do this, but we can be here and we can enjoy the hustle. But yeah, it's all, like Ramdas, grist for the mill. It's all practice. Like, sitting on a zafu and our zabutons is wonderful. That's such an important place to build our foundation of meditation. But something I learned early on is it doesn't end there. We take it with us into the world, or we can. I encourage people, take it with you into the world. Bathroom breaks are so important. Take a mindful breath while you're on the bathroom. Put your phone away, dude. Like, and I'm guilty of this too.
Yeah.
My emails, my texts. Put it away. Take a mindful breath. Even if you're taking a poop and it doesn't smell great, like, or just be present in that moment. Sorry, listeners, I don't mean to be gross, but
Yeah.
for real, man, like, we have to take the time when we can find moments.
Yeah.
It's not easy for me to. I'm already getting up early. Now I have to go to work earlier. Like, I get there at 7 a.m. now, starting I think next week or week after. I have to go in at 6:30. And like, so I'm gonna be getting up at like 4:30, 4:45. Like, okay, a lot of people do that. My brother does that. He's a math teacher. He gets up mad early to commute. And he's a great
Cool.
math teacher. I love my brother. He's a good man. He's got a beautiful family. I got two great nieces. Just yeah. But take moments. Take the moments you can. Make that a priority in your life. Social media, I have it. I'm grateful I get to connect with people. Like, we're connected there, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. But put the phone down. Wake up, meditate, even if it's for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Say a prayer if you believe in whatever. Set an intention. Get a morning ritual. You know, if you don't know how to, YouTube it, Google it. I did a Wanderlust talk about a 10-minute morning ritual. There's books on it. You don't have to spend a penny. Like, just Google it, YouTube. Those are your friends. Do a little research. The means are there. And then share that with somebody. Don't ever force anything on anyone, but gently invite someone. Hey, you ever thought about trying this? Send them a link. I send my parents and my friends links all the time. So I must annoy the shit out of them. And I know they don't probably watch all of them, but like, send links to people. Post links on your social media. I know the algorithms don't always pick it up. Maybe one person will see that, and maybe it'll help them, and maybe they'll share it with someone else, or maybe it'll help them just help someone in their life. You never know the ripple effects. You never know.
Yeah.
One act of kindness. I like random acts of kindness, but how about conscious acts of kindness, intentional? Like, let's do that. Like, my brother does this thing every Christmas with my two nieces. I adore this. He gives them a couple of like $5 Dunkin' Donut gift cards, and says, "Hey, whoever you feel called to, just go give this to them. And, he's teaching his kiddos young. And, and who knows, not only is he teaching his kiddos to pay it forward and be good human beings, who knows what impact that'll have on them. Buy a coffee if you have the means for someone behind you. Hold the door for someone behind you. Smile at the cashier at the grocery store when you're checking out. Ask them how their day is and mean it. Like maybe you don't have time to ask them. Say thank you and look them in the eyes. Like have a genuine human interaction. Strangers that make you smile or that you smile at are important. Share music with people. Like I don't know how much time this world has left. I don't want to be a doomsy guy, but things are pretty crazy in this world right now. It's often crazy in this world, but they're really escalated right now. Who knows how much time we have left? Like, make it mean something. That's been a phrase that's been coming back to me a lot these last several months. Make it mean something. Make your life mean something. Make this moment.
Yeah.
Just do something and be good to yourself too. Be good to yourself. Have a freaking ice cream cone. Have a piece of pizza. If you're vegan, have some vegan pizza or something within reasons. If you're diabetic, please take care of your health. But like, top 10 or 5 regrets of human beings. Like there's a list. Google that. Like, I wish I had that ice cream cone.
Yeah.
I wish I walked like barefoot in the grass. I wish I took more time for moments in nature, spent time with family. Like, you know, don't squander these things. Like, I know we're busy and I know it's difficult. I know not everyone has family, but like, reach out, get out of your comfort zone. I know it's not easy. This is like coming from a very introverted person who's not super introverted anymore. I still have the tendencies, but like, we can change. Neuroplasticity is a thing. Like we can change who we are. And doesn't mean who we are isn't beautiful already, but we can always be a little bit better, I think. Don't be hard on yourself, but challenge yourself a little bit. Like show up. Do something different, like brush tomorrow morning, brush with your left hand. I don't know, put a different shoe on first. I don't just do something different.
It,
Something different.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. Thank you. I really like your message, both in reading Indie Spiritualist and some of the work that you've done online, and both in this and also in this conversation that I'm having with you now. For people who want to get more in touch with your work and learn more about you, there's Indie Spiritualist, and the podcast is coming back as well in 2024. That book has been out for a while, but you also have you have several books, and you're working on one now. Do you want to let people know about some work that you have coming up, and also Necessary Death, which released recently,
Yeah.
and also just where people can find you? Yeah,
Yeah.
and also where people can get in touch.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I unfortunately lost my domain name because of relapse and lack of funds. indiespiritualist.com got bought. I think I don't know what it is now. It's sad. All the interviews I did for years are gone. I lost them, like with so many great people. The podcast is still there. That's there. But I mean, from Chino Deftones to like Henry Rollins, Danny Trejo, lots of
Wow.
spiritual teachers, actors, musicians, Ian MacKaye, Fugazi and Minor Threat, like Immortal Technique, all these great people, Atmosphere, Aesop Rock. I don't know. I lost all of it. But hey, impermanence. That said,
Right.
I'm on social media, like I think my name, X, the letter X, an old nod to old straight edge Chris, X Chris ChrisGrossoX. That's Instagram. I think that's Facebook. Um, and I check my messages. I reply to people. If you send me an email, I email you back. Like I'm busy, but I always try to if people are interested, I'll find time, or I'll do my best to find time. I promise. So, yeah, that's it. And if I don't get back to you, I apologize, or sometimes things go to spam. Reach out to somebody else. Please don't give up because someone didn't get back to you. Like, you're fucking worth it, dude. Like, you are worth it. If you're hearing this right now, I mean that. Like, we've all made mistakes. Doesn't mean we aren't worth another shot. I've had infinite amounts of chances, more than I deserve. That's why I'm trying to make this mean something right now. Like, I don't want to go back to who I was. Like, it's time to be a better human being and help others. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. I love your perspective, and I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been an honor. I'm glad this is one of the first podcasts I've gotten to do. Like, you're awesome, dude. And honestly, my hat is off to you, sir. I really appreciate you showing up in the world. I can see you're younger than I am, I think. And it fills my heart knowing there are people like you in this world that are interested in these things, that are taking time out of their lives, doing podcasts, sharing good work, like studying, learning, asking questions. This is how we change humanity, man, like for the better, is doing what you're doing. So seriously, I bow to you, Jake, and I thank you very much. And I'm here, dude. If I can support you, don't hesitate. I'm here
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot.
for sure.